Remember Majora's Mask? Easily the darkest, gloomiest game in the entire Zelda series. One of the most creative ones too, with lots of new imagery, themes, and all kinds of things we've never seen in a Zelda game before. From African mythology to biblical references, we are far from the traditional heroic fantasy setting, and it was great. But even beyond visuals, there was this mysterious atmosphere, this serious tone that made many think that there was a deeper meaning to what was happening on screen. Some kind of message. As you already know, this game has become a classic, and Nintendo decided to add a little nod to the game in A Link Between Worlds for the 3DS, where the mask itself is displayed on the wall in Link's house. The main ability you have in this game is being able to merge with the walls like graffiti. So at first, many believed that you could just slide behind the mask to wear it and maybe trigger something special. But nope, it doesn't do anything. So, is this just a simple Easter egg for the fans, just for fun? Well, I don't think so. What if I told you that this is the ultimate clue to the Legend of Zelda's biggest and best hidden secret? First, let's talk about the land of Termina. What do we actually know about this place? Well, Termina is known to be an alternate version of the land of Hyrule, where everything related to the goddesses or Hylian religion in general seems to be completely gone. Instead, technology has developed, and we can come across things like steamboats, pipes, clockworks, all kinds of stuff. In this world, every character you know and love from Hyrule has a counterpart, an alter ego with the same appearance, but a different personality, a different backstory, and sometimes even a different name. The comparison even stands for the emblem of both lands. Hyrule is represented by a majestic bird, a loftwing, a symbol of power, whereas Termina's emblem is an owl, a nocturnal bird, wings down, seeming a bit less epic, though wise and mysterious. It's in this world that child Link, driven by his quest to find his lost friend Navi, will venture and fight. All the while, the inhabitants brace themselves, for the end of the world is coming. Pretty grim, huh? But maybe this reminded you of another kingdom with a somewhat similar story. In A Link Between Worlds, we are introduced to the land of Lorule, a dark and corrupted version of Hyrule, the other side of the mirror where everything is the same, but reverse. Hilda, Princess Zelda's Lorulean counterpart, tells us a bit more about her kingdom. In a long-forgotten time, Lorule was just as shiny and flourishing as the Hyrule we know and love. They even had their own Triforce. But, as was the case in our character's homeland, a relic of such power only brought war to the people, divided by jealousy and lust for power. To end the wars, the Lorulean Triforce was destroyed, and as time went on, the kingdom fell apart. Starting to get where I'm going with all this? Well, I'm afraid you will have to wait a bit longer because this is only the beginning. As you may know, everything in the Zelda universe revolves around symbols, colors, elements, characters, virtues, etc. Let me ask you one question. Have you heard of the tetraforce? No? Well, it's time for a crash course. The tetraforce is a very old theory that was denied by Nintendo. This theory claims that the hollow triangle in the center of the Triforce is actually a fourth piece that was taken away from the relic. It goes like this. In the Zelda universe, everything is known to go by 3, as we've seen just before, except it doesn't. The number 4 is far more represented. Let's do a quick review of them all. In the Minish Cap and plenty other Zeldas, there are 4 elements: fire, water, earth, and wind, respectively red, blue, green, and purple. There are 4 Links in Four Sword, the classic green one, red Link, blue Link, and purple Link. Here's that color purple again. In Twilight Princess, there are 4 light spirits: Eldin, Lanayru, and Faron, whose names are taken from the goddesses themselves, but then comes Ordona, who has really no tangible origin. And plus, just like Nintendo, the other spirits deny Ordona's existence. This trend goes on with the main races of the series. We have the Gorons, affiliated with fire and rock, the Zoras, fish-like creatures, the Deku, living in the forest, and also humanoids, whether they be Hylians, the people of the sky, or Gerudos, living in the desert as thieves and renegades. And do you know what's best? There aren't even 3 goddesses. Yes, there actually is a 4th one. You know, the goddess Hylia. It really seems like the forces that tie the Zelda universe together tend to go by 4 instead of 3. Let's recap what we have here. The wind, the color purple, or Donna, the desert, humanoids, and the goddess Hylia. Some of it makes perfect sense. Hylia being the protector and goddess of the humanoids, her symbol is the Loftwing, Hyrule's bird. Heck, she was the one to send the Hylians to the sky along with a piece of the land for them to survive. She's the typical representation of a guardian angel, ruling over the sky, and she's obviously intimately tied to the Triforce. But what about the other stuff, like the color purple and the Gerudo? She has nothing to do with that. Yes, we'll cover that stuff soon. Just have faith in me for a little while, and everything shall be explained. For the moment, let's take a look back at Majora's Mask. In this game, the goal for Link is to travel the world of Termina in 4 directions. First going south to the Mojo Palace, then north to the Goron's Mountain, west to the Great Bay where the Zoras live, and finally east to Ikana Valley, the deserted Land of the Dead. A place out of time, where the living corpses of the soldiers keep acting like the war that ravaged them never ended. In order to enter the valley, you need to get the Garo mask, an item that allows you to talk to the dead. Once you have it with you, the NPC that keeps you from entering beforehand will say the following.
That is a nice mask you're wearing. That is the mask of the leader of the ninjas who once spied on the hilltop castle with the blood-stained history.
Keep that line in mind, as it's going to be very important later. We are later introduced to the Garo themselves, cloaked warriors in the desert, wielding sabers. Their combat style is swift like the wind, hectic even. Upon defeating them, the Garo warrior will blow himself up so that everything he knows dies with him. True ninjas. And yes, I know we're not quite going anywhere with this yet, but don't you worry, it's coming. Here, take a look at the logos of every game in the franchise. Do you notice something? Yes, Majora's Mask, for it is the first and only time in the series that the title dropped its classic red lettering in favor of a nice purple one. That may have been a lot to take in, and we still haven't covered everything, but we're getting close. There is a common theory that connects the Majora's Mask to the fused shadow of Twilight Princess. Let's take a look, shall we? So, in general, when several masks are created by the same tribe, they are likely to share some sort of symbol, like a signature or a style. And indeed, the eye on Majora's Mask matches perfectly with the remaining eye of the fused shadow. Is it possible, then, that both masks were created by the same people? Let's find out. In Majora's Mask, the happy mask salesman tells the player that the Majora's Mask was created by a very ancient tribe, to be used in hexing rituals and sacrifices. It has then fallen into the hands of the salesman himself under unknown circumstances, only to be stolen by Skull Kid, the quote-unquote villain of the game. The fused shadow, on the other hand, has a bit more backstory. In the original timeline, just before Ocarina of Time, a terrible war broke out in the kingdom, the Hyrulean Civil War. As everyone was punching each other's faces, the overall chaos created an opportunity for a group of interlopers to steal the Triforce away from the royal family, using a powerful dark magic and the fused shadow itself to break into the sacred realm. Just before accomplishing their goal, the light spirits were sent to banish the interlopers into a separate dimension, a world of shadow, where they would lie forever. The Twilight Realm. Inside this realm of darkness, the interlopers changed forms, becoming the Twilight. But still, they continue one particular custom. Each and every one of them wears a mask. If you made it to this point in the video, your wait is finally over, because we have all the information we need to piece together the first big part of the puzzle and identify these interlopers. So, We're looking for an ancient tribe, close enough to the royal family to know about the sacred realm and how to break into it. Masters of shadow magic, creating masks and artifacts with strange powers. Fluent in ninja-like arts, an eye as their most recognizable symbol, and are almost extinct by the time of Ocarina of Time. Did you get it? The Interlopers are the Sheikah tribe. Yes! The same Sheikah that have been the protectors of the royal family since the dawn of times, even before Skyward Sword. All along they have been by their side, learning all there is to know about the Triforce and the secrets of Hylia, practicing their dark magic hidden down the well of their village, enchanting stones to gather info about the kingdom, creating artifacts with the power to reveal the truth, until the day where they would be able to steal away the Triforce from Hyrule, betraying their longtime allies and revealing their true nature. But why, you may ask? Come on now, we'll see that in just a few minutes. How impatient can people be on YouTube these days? But first, a bit more info. I'd like you to take your attention back to Hylia. As of now, she doesn't really fit into the picture, and we're gonna try to fix that. One of the key abilities of the goddess Hylia we tend to forget is her affinity with time. After all, she created the Master Sword and the Ocarina of Time, an artifact that Link uses multiple times to time travel. She also created the Gates of Time, these gargantuan portals that play a huge role in Skyward Sword. And finally, she has the ability to reincarnate again and again, all across the ages, and even call out to her chosen hero to be reborn with her. It even goes back to Majora's Mask, a game where there is no faith anymore. When you reclaim your ocarina from Skull Kid's hands, Link gets a flashback to his last meeting with Princess Zelda, aka Hylia reincarnated. Before he goes, she plays him the Song of Time one last time with the magic flute, and tells him, "It reminds me of us." And that's despite the fact that since time traveling back at the end of Ocarina, this would have been the first time they ever met. But more importantly, after playing this song, she says the following: "The goddess of time is protecting you. If you play the Song of Time, she will aid you." And this is the only line she gets. Also, a few characters in the game do reference the goddess of time, calling out for her for help. And there you have it. The only deity that the Terminian people still worship, albeit weakly, is the goddess of time, Hylia herself, no longer the three goddesses. Well then, let's gather all of our clues before we get to the final part. The number 4 in Zelda is often associated with purple, the wind, the desert, the Gerudo, and Hylia, which now includes time. It has a strong connection to Majora's Mask, the game, not the artifact, as it is the game where these are most heavily represented. It is also good to know that in Japanese culture, where Zelda happens to be made, the number 4 is seen as a sign of bad luck, as one of the ways you can say the number 4 in Japanese is shi, which also means death. Purple, on the other hand, is the color typically attributed to villains. Case in point, even in the Japanese release of Rayman 2, Rayman's clothing was changed from purple to blue, so that the Japanese audience would not identify him as a villain. So, death and villains. Let's put those on the list too. And let's get back to Ikana Valley real quick. You know, death, villains, and everything. Remember what that NPC said?
Yee-hee-hee! That's a nice mask you're wearing. That is the mask of the leader of the ninjas who once spied on the hilltop castle with the blood-stained history.
Interesting. Now, let me reintroduce you to Zant, the leader and self-proclaimed king of the Twilight. Yes, the enigmatic Garo are actually the Interlopers. The Twilight, the Sheikah, and the castle of Ikana is actually the Termina universe's Hyrule Castle. Stormed by the ninjas who spied on their secrets, the secrets of the castle with the blood-stained history. All of the Hylian soldiers are dead but cannot rest in peace, forced to wander in undeath. They act like the day of their demise never ended, the same way that Link, the exact same Link that wanders inside these ruins, will become the hero's shade. The Link from Ocarina of Time. You didn't see that one coming, did you? Anyway, focus. In the end, the most mysterious character out there truly is the Happy Mask Salesman, He starts off playing the victim, asking us to get his mask back. But we soon find out that he knows way more than he tells, as if he wanted Link to fall down this trap in the first place. His design tells the same thing. He's got pointy ears, a slightly darker skin tone than the other characters, and his eyes are red. And in fact, all of these traits are exclusive to the Sheikah. Note too that he's the one selling the Mask of Truth in Ocarina of Time. And nice choice of color, this tunic, by the way. Alright, we talked about Lorule earlier in this video, remember? We talked about Hilda, and as you're seeing her right now on your screen, you probably know where this is heading. Red eyes, purple clothing, darker skin, pointy ears. I've spent the last 15 minutes telling you again and again about those connections. So let's get right into it. Here's what we're gonna do. Let's review Lorule's backstory together. So as Hilda told us, in the beginning Lorule was doing just fine, hopeful, bathed in light, and the Triforce was still a thing. Hilda, being the princess of the realm, supposedly makes her Hylia's reincarnation in this universe, right? Even the names would match. But then came the wars. And as the populace wanted to get the shiny triangles, people smacked each other's faces. Hilda, wanting to stop the conflict, then had the most brilliant idea she could have, destroying the Triforce, so no one can abuse it. In A Link to the Past, we learn that once the Triforce gets messed up, the Sacred Realm becomes the Dark World, a disgusting land, falling apart, and that's precisely what happened in Lorule. But most importantly, in the Dark World, people are transformed into creatures that reflect the true nature of their heart. Pinocchio style. Enjoy your nightmares. Link, for example, turns into a cute little bunny, but bandits and smugglers, greedy as they are, will become pigs. Or moblins, if you prefer. Knowing all this, it's easy to conclude that it's right after the destruction of the Triforce that residents began to turn into monsters. Later, we get to the alternative version of Kakariko Village, now known as the Thieves' Hideout. As we know what's going on down the well of Kakariko, the conjunctions are obvious. Right in the center of the village lies the milk bar from Majora's Mask. The waiter tells us that with all these monsters running around, more and more people take refuge in here. The building has clearly been put there for a reason. It's a huge clue that leads us into thinking that Lorule is actually Termina, prior to its fall. You don't believe me? Well, that's understandable. Little evidence and all that. So here comes some more. Remember in Ocarina of Time when Ganondorf breaks into the Sacred Realm, becomes the King of Evil, and turns Hyrule basically into fantasy Fallout? I mean, I guess that's Elder Scrolls. But when we go back to Lon Lon Ranch, famous for its Lon Lon milk by the way, we find out that Ganondorf gave the ranch to Ingo. You know, the same waiter from the milk bar. Give him a year, the bar is operational again. But that's not all of it. The big thing lies in the Central Plaza, where a newly formed cult is settled. A guru, wearing a mask that resembles the face of a monster, preaches to the terrified residents, which is understandable. They're terrified of becoming monsters, but that will inevitably happen anyway, which is why he offers them a way of redemption. He is certain that the corruption lying in every single one of them will sooner or later take them away, and the goddesses won't save them. Only monsters will. Simply wearing one of his masks would give them strength. Once again, you probably saw these NPCs by simply playing the game, but you may not have really noticed them. After all, the devil tends to be in the fine details. At this very moment, Lorule has become a land where monsters reign by strength, and as the inhabitants barricade themselves in the ruins of the Sheikah village, it's easy to assume that they simply fortified the place to keep monsters away, exactly like Clocktown. Monsters destroyed the faith of the residents. They no longer trust in the goddesses. Everything here tells us that Termina and Lorule are one and the same. Alright, until now, this video was mostly analysis and finding clues. Now's the time we get to the hypothetical part. The real theory. So let's put quote-unquote onto everything and use our imagination. So first of all, to me, Lorule sounds like a strange name. It makes a clear parallel to Hyrule, so why would anyone call its realm inferior version of a realm from another dimension we don't even know about? Personally, I think that Lorule used to be called Hyrule, which would be a nice consonance with Hylia and Hilda. The name would have been changed with the realm's downfall. Hyrule becomes Lorule, the Fallen Kingdom, then later renamed to Termina, the world in a terminal condition, at the end of it all. At the end of everything. We could also imagine that the red eyes, the dark skin, and all of these traits are symptoms of minor exposure to the corruption, the dark sky, and the hardly breathable air. Now, what if Hilda had actually had a backup plan to fix this? I would expect no less from the holder of the Triforce of Wisdom and reincarnation of Hylia. She could have sent some of her soldiers to the past, via the Gates of Time. Or more simply, she could have used the Ocarina to restart everything, and help the goddesses once again in giving birth to a new Hyrule, one where destroying the Triforce would be absolutely inconceivable. What if she did do this? At least in some split timeline. Perhaps they would create and wear a symbol that summarizes their mission, an eye, a symbol of knowledge, surmounted by 3 triangles. Take a guess what that means. Shedding a single tear in memory of this poor decision. Basically, we destroyed the Triforce. It was bad, don't do that. Now, we've got 2 different timelines, one where the Triforce was destroyed and another where it was kept safe, and those 2 coexist in the multiverse. It would be possible to travel from one to the other, and A Link Between Worlds clearly showed us that some people of Lorule were able to do this kind of travel through dimensional cracks. In-game, the path to Hyrule's castle is blocked by that same black magic, those cracks. With the help of the Master Sword, you can slash right through it and clear the path. It is funny then, how in Skyward Sword, Demise used that very same weapon to lead his first invasion, which we know from the lore came from a crack in the earth. This theory actually answers a lot of questions throughout the whole Zelda franchise. Where does Vadi, the first villain after Skyward Sword, come from? Purple outfit? Red eyes? Sharp ears? Is a winged mage capable of turning into this thing? Lorule. Where does Dark Link and the happy mask salesman, who in the end only wanted to bring Link back home to prevent the end of the world, and all those weird sneering people hiding in the dark corners come from? Lorule. And what about the Gerudos? Because yeah, how are they involved in all this? Well, in Twilight Princess there is quite an interesting dungeon, Arbiter's Grounds. It has been built by the Gerudos, and it is the 4th dungeon of the game. Nowhere in Hyrule will you find such highly advanced technology, with mechanisms and complex puzzles. It's filled with Stalfos too. Another interesting point is the boss, Stalord, a gigantic undead monster with a huge totem stuck in its skull. Just like the imprisoned. Imprisoned form of Demise. Even the ghosts' smells match. Remember? When you play as Wolf Link, you get to learn the smell of the spirits haunting the place. Guess how the smell is depicted in-game? Yep, a trail of purple smoke. Finally, this is the very place in which the Mirror of Twilight is hidden, used to banish the Interlopers into the Twilight Realm. It shares a quite strange resemblance to the Gates of Time, too. Plus, let's be honest, this guy here, Yuga, he's a Gerudo, right? So, long story short, taking into account everything I've said so far, the long-going cliché of the series depicting 2 worlds clashing against each other looks a bit less stupid and gimmicky, since there has always been just these 2 worlds. The light world and the dark world, which really are just 2 sides of the same story, with one getting a darker outcome than the other. And there you have it. The ultimate Zelda theory, the Cult of Masks. What do you think of it? Interesting? Plausible? Few holes, but good all around? Let me know down below. And here are a few other awesome Zelda videos. Until next time, never stop using that noggin. And if you want to be super awesome, consider supporting this channel through Patreon. Links below. Ta-ta.